addition to the issues that were raised by the unions, will the government facilitate the request made by the members of the union?
What's the request?
They are not happy with the government's decision to impose fixed-term individual contract for civil servants and the right to freely conduct secret ballot and right to strike. They feel that the government is violating their rights, and also they're demanding for $4 minimum wage rate.
Firstly, there is no restriction on people to go on strike. The right to strike, which has been contained in the Employment Relations Act, has been there since 2007. In fact, with the concurrence of the unions, we changed the provisions last year when we met up with the ILO, and as you know, we had made certain amendments, in which previously you had to give 28 days strike notice in essential services. What the government actually did was actually reduce it from 28 to 14. So in other words, the amount of time required to give notice was reduced from 28 to 14. Unions are fully aware of that. There are constitutional provisions, there are provisions within the Employment Relations Act that says that people do have a right to strike. However, you have to follow particular processes. This is what the unions are telling you. And this is what we call obfuscation by some of the certain trade union leaders. Everybody has a right to strike, but you have to go through a process. In this particular instance, as we can see, the permit, original permit, as you know, when the application was made, was supposedly made on behalf of civil servants who were going to march. And the whole issue is regarding the civil service reforms. Those of you may know about this when they made the application. But of course, we saw that others have joined the fray now, and others are now raising other issues such as minimum wage, etc., which I'll come to later on. But everybody has a right to strike, but you follow the process. In the case of the civil servants, or I shouldn't say civil servants, the Fijian Public Servants Association, when they made the application to the Registrar of Trade Unions, who is the permanent secretary for industrial relations, the Registrar of Trade Unions needs to be satisfied that all avenues of bargaining in good faith have been exhausted. Once it is exhausted, only then you can have the right to then go and conduct a secret ballot to ask their members whether to go on strike or not. But the Registrar of Trade Unions obviously found that the unions had not negotiated in good faith. In fact, the government since last year had been calling the trade unions to attend various consultations and meetings to come and talk about the civil service reforms, what we are doing. Unions had responded saying we were too busy having meetings. So obviously the Registrar of Trade Unions decided that they could not go on a ballot at that particular point in time because they had not exhausted the means of negotiating in good faith. So the processes are all there. The rights have not been infringed, but they're all processes that we need to adhere to, which has not been adhered to by the trade unions. So you see, they are actually going out and deliberately misinforming the Fijian people, deliberately misinforming their members. The right to strike is there, but you have to follow the process like in all countries. The second issue you raised was about the contract. Prior to the civil service reforms, already 70%, and we've said this so many times now, you should have it in your archives, 70% of the civil servants are already on contracts. And the fact of the matter is that, as we've said in the civil service consultations, nobody who is currently on tenure actually has to go on a contract. The choice is still theirs. Obviously, the new conditions of the new pay rises won't apply to them because the new pay rises will apply to those who actually go on contract. But those who want to remain on tenure can continue to do so. They won't lose their jobs. That's their choice. Now, the fact of the matter is, as I said, 70% of the civil servants are already on contract prior to the reforms. Contractual employment actually gives the civil servants in this particular instances much higher pay rise. Some nurses have received pay rises up to 70%. Some teachers have received pay rises up to 40%. Others have received pay rises up to 35%. Some 15%. Now, across the board, there's been an average of about, in excess of about slightly over 15% across the board. So, the contractual basis also now guarantees a regular assessment of the person's performance. And this is what we've done, we fixed up the base salary now. Now with the regular performance on a yearly basis or every 2 years, what you'll actually have is your ability to have pay rises on a much regular basis. Previously the old system was you have this one pay rise, and then maybe after 5, 10 years, whatever it is, then you have this big argument about it, and maybe get a 3%, 5% pay rise. In this particular instance, the actual civil servants will have the ability to get regular assessments of their performance and therefore get a regular improvement in the salaries, in the terms and conditions. They're obviously not telling you about the fact that meal allowances have jumped from $9 to $20. So the fact of the matter is that none of what they're saying to you today is in fact factually correct. They've been economical with the truth. And the reality, of course, is that we have unequivocally stated that teachers and nurses will get an automatic right of renewal because of the nature of the profession. Unless, of course, you have a teacher who's abused somebody, who's abused a student, not performing well, or a nurse who's stealing from the system, stealing cutlery, crockery, sheets, whatever it is, not performing to the way that they're supposed to. Of course, then they'll get reviewed. They may not also have their contracts renewed. But there's regular assessment also at the same time. So the opportunity to have the pay rise. But because of those two specific professions, they'll get an automatic right of renewal and their contracts up to 5 years. None of you here who are interviewing me have a job for life. None of you. None of your contracts say that you have a job for life. Nobody in the private sector has that. The point of the matter is that everybody, and this is the modern way of running employee-employee relationships. And I'm sure if you went and asked ordinary Fijians, if you ask ordinary Fijians, what do you want? Do you want civil servants to be performing well and delivering good service to them? They'll say yes. If you ask them and said to them, do you want a civil servant who is not a performer to continue to serve you? They'll of course say no. These are taxpayers' money. But the fact of the matter is that for the first time in Fiji's history, you've had civil servants receiving such high pay rises in a lump sum. First time in Fiji's history, up to 70% pay rises, 75% pay rises, 40% pay rises, and a recognition of the fact that you actually now have merit-based appointments. You have a proper disciplinary process. You now have also regular assessments of your performance, so you can get regular pay rises, a regular recognition of how you're performing. These are some of the things that they're not telling you.
So we can speak on the point, I think number 3 or 4 that Mr. Felix has spoken about on those that are under the Wages Council, on how government has presented a regulation where they will now, that the double time has been removed.
I have the regulations here. You should read it yourself. Why are you taking Felix Anthony's word for it? Does it say anywhere it got rid of double time? It doesn't. It's factually incorrect. He's misleading you.
Yeah.
The law is quite clear. Please read the Gazette yourself. It says here, talks about the definition of double and twice and all of that. Does not in any way stop double time. Double time is there. The law says it's there.
Attorney General, he said you had passed the law in secret and it was triple time prior to the new law.
No, you see, this is their misreading of it. You see, the fact of the matter is, there's an issue about twice and double. Right? There's nothing secret. It's a regulation. A regulation is made by a minister. You see, you got to understand. Felix, Mahendra Chaudhry, Linda Tambuya, these people are now trying to resuscitate their political careers. They've been in political oblivion. That's the point. These people did not even make the 5%. They're using the workers of these few hundred workers that just turned up today on their backs to launch again their political careers. Got nothing to do with the workers. That's the point. If there was such a huge outcry of workers, you'd have thousands. There are 10,000 teachers in Fiji. There are about 6,000 or 7,000 nurses in Fiji. There's altogether 28,000 civil servants. Where were they? They obviously are satisfied with what is happening. If you look at some of the people who were there, they were actual political people. This was a march supposedly about civil service conditions. But you have some people coming talking about minimum $4 wages. Again, let me talk to you about that. There was a widespread public consultation that was conducted on minimum wages. Now, again, you see, they're obfuscating issues. Again, the reality is this. The minimum wage is for unskilled people. The other categories of employment have their own minimum wage. Own minimum wage. So, for example, a foreman on a construction site, the minimum wage I think is about $4.98 from memory. I think it's about $4.98. Now, but if you go to the job site now, how much is a foreman getting paid? $10 an hour, $9 an hour. $11 an hour because of the fact there's a huge demand for these positions. Bricklayers are getting paid $8, $9 an hour. Electricians are being paid $12 an hour. Welders in Suva are getting paid $15 to $16 an hour. The minimum wage is for unskilled people. So for example, the person who comes and cuts grass at your house, the lady who comes and works at your house and looks after the baby or works as house help. That's what you call the unskilled workforce. It's for those people. Now when you actually assess minimum wages, you need to take into account, for example, the cost of living, to take into account the various everyday utility costs that people have to meet. And that's how you set minimum wages. There's an independent professor who carried out the assessment of minimum wage. He went around Fiji carrying out public consultations. He came up with $2.68 minimum wage for unskilled workforce, not the others. So you see, again, there's obfuscation. And even if you do say, some people are saying $4 an hour, some people are saying $5 an hour. You must look at the inflationary impact of such a increase. Will the lady who currently is working, if Mary has a baby here and she's working, if she pays somebody $5 an hour to work at her house for 8 hours a day, which is $40 a day, multiplied by 5 is $200 a week. Will she be able to continue with her employment and pay somebody $200 a week? A person who is selling, mithai, the sweets that you guys go and buy outside your workforce, he's employed somebody. When he pays them $5 an hour at the mithai stall, do you think he'll be able to sell the gulab jamun to you for the same price he's selling it to you today? This is what you call the assessment of determining minimum wages. But also one of the issues about minimum wages is this, is that whoever is carrying out the assessment needs to say, well, okay, what are the day-to-day costs? Now, assuming that if you are somebody who does not have to pay for your children's school fees, you pay half the electricity cost because you earn less than $30,000 a year. You get free water up to 90,250 liters of free water a year because you're earning less than $30,000. Your cost at your hospital is free. You get free medicine. Obviously, all of these kind of programs through government reduces the cost of the day-to-day living of an individual. So those people at the bottom end of the socio-economic scale, those day-to-day costs of theirs are met. So that obviously is taken into consideration. So it's a whole multiplier of effects, multiple issues that need to be taken into consideration before minimum wage actually is implemented. But as I said, it's minimum wage for unskilled workforce. The minimum wage for other categories, and I've got the list over here. You got hotel catering trades, manufacturing trades, mining quarrying trades. These are all the different 10 categories of what they call the Traditional Wages Council. Hotel and catering trades, manufacturing trades, mining and quarrying trades, printing trades, sawmilling and logging trades, security services trades, wholesale and retail trades, garment trades, road transport. These are all the different areas. Obviously, their minimum wage is higher than the 268 an hour.
General, Felix Anthony said that the contracts were a method in a larger government plot to weaken and kill off unions. I was wondering if you could respond to that.
There are many countries in the world where there are contracts in place. Unions still actually exist. Unions still exist. See, unfortunately, the problem with the trade unions and some of these personalities is that they have not been able to remodel themselves into the 21st century. And as we have always seen, and as we have always said, the trade unions have been absent from the most difficult sectors where there has actually been abuse of workers. There has been outright abuse of workers. We have said that. The Honourable Minister for Labour has said that. We have said that continuously. If any worker is being mistreated, if any worker is being underpaid, please come and tell us. We know that that's been happening on some of the construction sites, some of the retail areas. But are the trade unions active there? No, they are not active there. Trade unions are always most active wherever there is government or a state-owned enterprise. The reason why today they're in the banking sector is because government used to own a bank before, the National Bank of Fiji. That's the only reason why they're in the banking sector. So they're fundamentally absent from many of the areas because it's very difficult for them, you see, to go and collect the dues. It's hard work. It's very easy when you're employed by government or state-owned enterprises to get the union dues. That's what they're after fundamentally. The whole idea of contract is not to in any way undermine any organization or any person. It's a relationship the government actually has with the employee. And in the same way a state-owned enterprise will have that. It does not in any way stop anybody. I mean, you are all on contracts. It does not stop you from going and forming a employee organization or union, whatever you may want to do. It does not in any way. We're not sitting there, in some room, rubbing our hands together and say, let's get rid of this group, we're not doing that. We essentially want to create a modern day economy. In 15 years' time, unemployment has been the lowest now. 5.5%. The lowest has been 15 years. We're on an 8-year straight growth. Projected to grow for another 3-4 years. It means more economic opportunities, it means more jobs. More jobs. It means sustaining of jobs. You see, it's one thing to get a job, but the issue is, will that job continue? And it's not just only about civil servants. Why are they so selfish? There are many people who are employed in the private sector. We need continuity of those jobs. It's very simple. So we need to all work together. We've said this to them. We had a meeting with them. I met with Rajeshwar Singh and the others, last year. Invited them to come. Then they suddenly stopped coming. We had discussed, we had 2 or 3 meetings. We thought we were on the same path. But unfortunately, again, I think the issue is, and it would appear, that for the first time in Fiji's history, you actually have a government that on its own volition has actually gone ahead and carried out reforms that has resulted in very positive outcomes for civil servants. No government has ever given a 70% pay rise, one hit, 45% pay rise. It's always been a fight. We've done it on volition because we want to be a good choice employer, a choice employer. So we are saying, for example, we need to recognize the specialist nurses who are doing different jobs, so we need to pay them accordingly. We need to recognize, for example, a principal in a large high school, a hair teacher in a large school, need to be paid accordingly in a higher salary because they've got greater responsibility than people who sit in the headquarters. You've got a more higher responsibility. You're given 40% pay rise. So you see, the fact that the government has done this, the unions feel a bit left out. That they are not seen to be the one who's actually carried out these reforms. And I think they're trying to make themselves relevant. And in that quest to make themselves relevant, they are unfortunately telling the public of Fiji a lot of facts that are actually supposedly facts that are actually not facts. They are obfuscating the facts. Something like that. Very blatant. The fact about, I saw this question here that somebody sent saying that the processes for strikes are now too cumbersome. Government added new. No, we haven't. It's the same. Employment Relations Act. Since there, it's been the same. In fact, we've improved it. We're saying, don't give us 28 days notice. Give us 14 days notice. They had all agreed to these amendments. Now, every drop of a hat, they say, want to go running off to ILO. Why? We've agreed to this. There were 2 issues that had to be addressed. One of them was, of course, we have said that when we had agreed, we said that we will get an expert from ILO to actually come and look at the ambit of what is deemed to be essential services. Look at the ambit of that. Ministry of Labour has already written to ILO to say, please bring an expert. I think they'll be coming in February next year. So that's there. The Solicitor General, who is the chairperson of ERAB, which is the Employment Relations Advisory Board, which consists of union reps, private sector and government. They've got a meeting next week. They've actually, as part of the agenda, they have sent them a schedule of meetings to be held on a regular basis from February of next year, every second month, for them to meet. There are many issues that we need to discuss. Things like there has been discussion about paternity leaves. At the moment, we have maternity leave. Issues about paternity leave. Should that be available? How should it be available? What form should it be made available in? All those things need to be addressed. So we've complied with everything. There's no compliance. But you see, it really begs the question, why are these people trying to undermine the economy of Fiji? It would be a different story if, for example, workers in Fiji were being exploited, trade unionists were being treated in the way some trade unions get treated in some other faraway countries, that there was no wage increases, all of these new systems were not being in place. You can probably understand that. The fact is, all these things are happening. The economy is growing, more jobs are being created, unemployment is the lowest it's been in the past 15 years. It's going to drop some more because The growth rates are much higher now, will be much higher now. Wonderful opportunities created by the Honourable Prime Minister, the presidency of COP23. You saw what happened in the past 3 days. We've got new projects coming up. Water and sewage system. What does that mean? It's not just about putting a new water and sewage system. It means it creates jobs also. It's a 5-year project. We got Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation putting electricity in areas where they don't have electricity. What does it mean? It means economic opportunities for these villages, these isolated places. We've got now these green bonds, gives us the ability to do and address more, climate adaptation issues. All of these matters are being addressed. So we should all be working together. We've always said to them, let's work together. Let's not be so personally focused. And unfortunately, that's what they're doing. And unfortunately, from what we've been told, many of the people who were there actually were, kicking their career political football around. That's what it was all about. If you look at the general purpose of why this permit was required for, that's what it was for, regarding supposedly civil servants.
Minister, a question on the minimum wage for unskilled workers. At the moment it is $2.68. The unions and some parties want it to be $4. After the review that your government has conducted, is there a pathway or a forecast to get the current $2.68 up to $4 or even more, just for unskilled workers?
You see, again, I've addressed that issue. I don't know whether you were here when I was addressing the question. I've already addressed that issue. The minimum wage was introduced by the Bainimarama government. No other government has ever introduced minimum wage. Right? You need to understand that. There was no minimum wage for unskilled workers in Fiji. It was introduced by the Bainimarama government. Many people talked about it. It started off at $2. Then there was a review. Came up to $2.32. Now it's gone up to $2.68. Obviously, we need to review these things on a timely basis, taking everything into account. So, whatever the review will be, you see, the review was not carried out by us. We asked for the review to be carried out. It was conducted by an independent person. As all reviews state, you need to have, for the review to be credible, it needs to be carried out by an independent person who actually knows something about the subject matter. It's carried by a person from the University of the South Pacific who knows about, he's obviously au fait in this particular area, and he actually carried that out. And as a result of that, the 268 amount came up. Obviously, when it gets reviewed again, whatever figures comes up, I cannot be standing and committing to you a figure, because that will take away the independence of whichever committee or independent person is going to carry out this assessment.
Minister, my question was, has that consultant provided some sort of a roadmap or some sort of forecast on where the minimum wage is heading in future?
The consultant won't obviously do that. He carries out the assessment of what it is now. How do you know what the economy will be like, the cost of living, for example, will be in 2 years' time? You can't predict that. What if the world price of fuel shoots through the roof? Right? These are extraneous factors beyond our control. So I think it is quite disingenuous to actually say that.